perspectives of industry developers on the challenges and opportunities for advancing visual interpretation technologies. Moderator, Samreen Anjum, PhD student, University of Colorado, Boulder. Speaker, Saqib Shaikh, Software Engineering Manager, Microsoft. Speaker, Will Butler, Chief Experience Officer, Be My Eyes. Speaker, Karthik Kalin, Chief Technology Officer, Envision. Speaker, Ann Taylor, Principal Program Manager, Microsoft.
Hello everyone, welcome to the second panel of the VizWiz workshop. My name is Samreen Anjum and I'm a fourth-year PhD student at the University of Colorado, Boulder. I'm a woman with dark hair, wearing a printed top and a printed scarf today, sitting in my home office with a white plain background. It is my pleasure to introduce to you today 4 amazing experts from industry who are joining us today to share their experiences in building products and services that support people with visual impairments to learn about visual content. First, we have with us Saqib Shaikh, who is an engineer manager at Microsoft, where he co-founded Seeing AI, which is an app which enables someone who is visually impaired to hold up their phone and hear more about the text, people, and objects in their surroundings. This application has won multiple awards, and we're very excited to learn today about his experience in building such apps. We also have with us today Ann Taylor, who is the Principal and Program Manager at Microsoft, and she has also played a key role in the development of the Seeing AI app. Ann has an extensive accessibility advocacy experience and has been helping engineers at Microsoft understand the end user's perspective when building products and services for several years now. Next, we have with us Will Butler, who is the Chief Experience Officer at Be My Eyes, a free app with one of the largest online communities that supports visually impaired individuals to get free on-demand live video support from around 4 million volunteers and companies. These remote visual assistants help them interpret their visual surroundings and overcome accessibility barriers. Will has also written numerous motivational articles about his journey with vision impairment and hosted 2 podcasts on the topic of vision loss and accessibility. Finally, we have with us Karthik Kalin, who is the co-founder and chief technology officer of Envision, a company that provides technology to help people with visual impairments in their daily life. Their company builds an app and smart glasses which help people learn about their surroundings, including to read text and recognize faces. Thank you to all 3 of you for taking the time to share your expertise with us today. Before we start, I do have a request. To ensure the accessibility of this podcast, please remember to describe yourself and mention your name before you speak. So let's begin our conversation. The first question I have for you all today is about your role. Could you please share a bit about how you're trying to improve products and services for people with vision impairments within your company and how you got into your current line of work? And we can probably start with the order of introduction. So maybe we can start with Saqib, go with Ann, then Will, and then Karthik, and then switch up the order in the next question.
Great. Hi, I'm Saqib Shaikh, and I am a dark-skinned male wearing a black shirt in front of a plain background. So I work at Microsoft. I've worked here many years now on a variety of products, but as someone who is blind myself, I've always been interested in how do we use technology to improve people's lives for everyone and make it more inclusive. And then a number of years ago now, 2014, I had this opportunity at the company-wide hackathon to start working on a side project which turned into Seeing AI, looking at how do we take the cutting-edge AI technology from Microsoft and around the industry and bring that to improve the lives of people with visual impairment. And so I now lead the team, and we have the Seeing AI app on iPhone, and as you heard in the introduction, we sometimes describe it as a talking camera, which you hold it up and it'll recognize people, read text, and describe people around you, but then also works the photos from other apps or already on your phone. So that's kind of what the app does, but I think the bigger philosophy is really this of, I see our team as this ongoing conversation between the visually impaired community on the one side and all the scientists at Microsoft working on the cutting edge on the other side, and just always looking at how do we bring the latest technology to bear on our users' problems. So yeah, that's a bit about me and what we do.
Thank you, Saqib. This is Ann Taylor. I'm an Asian woman wearing Microsoft shirt, and I'm actually sitting in my living room here at home. So how I came into this role is I've been an advocate for equal opportunity and accessibility for the blind for a very long time. Before I joined Microsoft, I was the Director of Access Technology at the National Federation of the Blind. And then have an opportunity to join Microsoft to advocate for accessibility on the inside. Things that I do from day to day are co-create products and services with engineering teams across Microsoft, give feedback on new and existing technology that Microsoft creates via testing, and comment on or provide feedback for usability design of different product areas. And I think another component that I do at Microsoft is to create a culture and awareness of accessibility. When you're looking at 100,000 people working together, there are a lot of community that we can entrench ourselves, we as in people with disability, to raise the consciousness of the company for accessibility, and so that accessibility will always be a core competency of the business. And this will help Microsoft, in fact, live out our empowerment mission to help every individual to achieve more. So anything from technical feedback to usability feedback, and create the right culture for accessibility to thrive. That's what I do here at Microsoft.
Thanks, Anne. This is Will, and I am a white man sitting in my office with a couple of posters on the wall in the background, and my role at Be My Eyes kind of has evolved from initially, my skill set is as a writer and a journalist and researcher and sort of marketing and communications. But what I do at Be My Eyes is kind of help to tell the stories of not just our blind users and those who, like me, have varying degrees of visual impairment around the world, to take those stories and bring them to our product team, to our technology team, to our board members or investors, and represent them really accurately, so that we're making really good decisions for the community and everything we do with the product. So it's a product role in that regard. But also I'm in this unique place where we have this group of millions of volunteers who are also having an experience with people who are blind or have low vision. And so we spend a lot of time also trying to figure out, how do we incorporate these allies into our mission, and how do we leverage the data, insight, and information that we're getting from these wonderful people who are of assistance, to also channel that into making better products, better experiences, and ultimately better quality of life for people who are blind or have low vision. So it's a little bit of a marketing role, it's a little bit of a branding role, and it's certainly product management as well. And we kind of sit fully on the human interpretation side of the spectrum. None of the visual information delivered in the app is automated or machine driven at this time.
Hey everyone, my name is Karthik Kalin. I'm from Envision. I'm a Indian person, brown skin and with a beard. I'm wearing currently a black and white striped hoodie, and I have a wood paneled background. I'm sitting in a room with a wood paneled background. My role at Envision is that of a as a co-founder and a chief technology officer. A lot of my work is talking to users and understanding what they need in order to be able to access the visual information around them more easily, and also looking at what the state of the art in artificial intelligence can do reliably, and try to bridge and try to basically build products out of that. So we spend a lot of time talking to our users in the visually impaired community to try and understand what their needs are, and also looking at what the state of the art AI can do for those specific needs. So our product basically offers a lot of different, or tries to solve a lot of different types of visual challenges. So we build tools that help people read all kinds of documents or books, to being able to recognize their personal belongings, to be able to personalize the whole face recognition part of it. So we operate in a lot of areas of computer vision, and in each of these areas we try to bridge that by bridge it to the visually impaired community by talking to them and kind of giving them what they want, in terms of features within the Envision glasses or within the Envision app. So that's what we do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So my next question is about challenges. What are the challenges that are encountered in trying to improve upon the state of accessibility in practice? And if you can, please comment both on challenges your team has overcome as well as any unsolved problems currently encountered. And whoever is willing to go first, we can start, or we can probably follow the same order again.
I'll jump in real quick with respect to challenges. I think one of the difficult parts of developing technologies are the skill set of engineers that are graduating from colleges and university who's never been exposed to accessibility before. So accessibility, often a discipline where you learn on a job. And we are very fortunate as an industry to have really quick studies among engineers, and they can really learn everything well and quickly, and come up to speed very, very, very quickly, and be able to deliver with great precision. However, I think industry need to solve the challenges where accessibility need to be more entrenched in educational system, so that when it comes to working in IT professional or working in artificial intelligence, we already have accessibility as a core competency taken care of. I think we need to do more there at Microsoft, and I'm sure across the industry we are facing this problem. So it's up to people like me and Saqib and others who have this ability to really integrate ourselves well with new engineers to ensure that they are up to speed with respect to accessibility development. And I've done that. I'm sure Saqib has done that. And this is a challenge that I think can easily be solved as an industry. Several of companies working together to ensure that core competency and accessibility is taken care of in the educational early on.
I think I can
echo that.
Sure, go ahead, Saqib.
Sorry, this is Saqib. I would echo that. I can think of this as a blind guy, but also as an engineer, that when you think accessibility all up, the biggest challenge over the decades has been awareness. Whether it's websites, whether it's apps, the biggest challenge remains that most people don't know what they need to do to make accessible apps. I also have a couple of comments around seeing AI and our work here and the challenges we're solving, but maybe, Karthik, I know you wanted to jump in with something, so maybe I'll come back to that.
Sure, Saqib. Hi, this is Karthik. So, I think an extension of that problem also is something that I see specifically in the computer vision space. The way I see it is we don't have, since accessibility is not really a core, is not, the awareness for accessibility amongst technical folks in general isn't there. There is, for example, a lack of data sets that, have data from the point of view of a visually impaired person, right? I know Microsoft has done some work in that area, but I'm talking about a really nice, well-labeled data set that researchers can readily access to and sort of test their own models against that kind of a data, right? For example, when we wanted to build a document or a layout detection AI on our side, right? We found a lot of images that were very neatly cropped or well taken, but someone who's visually impaired often always has some issues with taking the image in the right angle. So we found that lack of representation in the data set of images taken from the point of view of a visually impaired person very difficult, because we know that our users who are using the glasses or using the app don't necessarily take a very well cropped or very well framed image at all times, right? And this is also seen in some areas, like, for example, object detection. Any object detection data set that you pick, right from ImageNet to Open Images, they all have images taken by sighted folks. And that, basically means that if you're trying to build AI and if you're trying to work at at a company like Envision, trying to build AI and accessibility together in a single product, the models themselves aren't accessible, right? The apps could be accessible themselves, but models are not accessible like in codes. So I think that lack of awareness spreads not just to people building products, but also building deep tech and computer vision as well. So that is something I would love to see change over the years, that we see mainstream data sets incorporate data from people with disabilities as well, so that when we want to build products or when researchers want to test their models come out of the gate as inclusive ones.
That's so true. If I could jump back in, you take the words from my mouth. Really, when it comes to the computer vision side and seeing AI, I think of this in two sides. What you were saying, Karthik. Sorry, this is Saqib. We're supposed to introduce ourselves. So if you think about the machine learning side, there is too often this idea that we're going to have a data set, we're going to train a model, and then from this data set will emerge this model that represents this data. But unless the data is inclusive and representative of your audience, and in our case, the audience is people who are blind, taking not well-framed photos necessarily, then your model is not going to be as good as it could be. And so we're definitely looking at how do we make more inclusive data sets. But a challenge with that is how do you maintain privacy? Because if you have too few users of any sort, then they might be too easy to identify them, or your challenges of how do people donate their data if you don't know what's in the image at the point that you take the photo. So there are a bunch of privacy issues with generating these inclusive data sets. So we're looking into that, but we're also looking into other approaches like personalization, where maybe you have a large general model, but then we can personalize to each individual, because each and every one of us is different. And that's another way that we're looking at getting over this lack of data in terms of machine learning algorithms. And a final point here is sort of blending machine learning algorithms with the user experience, because what we're creating here are new experiences that keep the human at the center. And traditional like computer vision, machine learning approaches might say, okay, have an image in, answer out. But really, this is all about how does the user move the phone? How do they hold the camera? What actions do they take? What were they intending to do? And these are all very human-centric actions. And how do you incorporate that into the machine learning process so that we have, this human-centered AI as well? So I could keep going on about this, but I'll hand it over.
Yeah, and I'll just chip in. I think as the sort of from the human-only perspective, I think there are two challenges. One is that we have we're really committed to the idea of Be My Eyes being free and being available globally. And so there's a lot of overhead that comes with that. And finding a business model that supports that is challenging. But we've had really great luck so far in terms of both a corporate business model that where Microsoft was, one of our first partners in that area, and also exploring individual ways that individuals can support and become members for additional experiences and value streams while maintaining a core free product. On the data side of things, we actually have quite a lot of ability to access inclusive data sets, but we encounter the same questions about ensuring privacy and really making sure that that the data is treated ethically. So that's something that we kind of get into, we can get into later, but we're a little more careful about. And I think where we're unique is that we have a lot of challenges around like localization and internationalization, in that we have interactions happening in hundreds of languages, and so in some ways it's the most inclusive data set you could imagine. So we don't have the ability to necessarily like translate all of this, and whether you're talking about it from like a community moderation standpoint, or whether you were actually going to try to derive some data insight from that. It's a massive challenge that you can't just use, volunteer labor for. So we kind of those are the kind of three areas where I think we where there's the most challenge, but also maybe the most opportunity.
I am with Will that we don't have enough participant from persons with disability because due to localization, due to the lack of exposure to technology, due to many things. And I think we need to do more to ensure that no matter where you are in the world, you have an equal opportunity to participate in something as important as help shape and form the type of data that we will get as an industry to further train and teach AI, so that we would ensure that the system is not biased. So it's something that we all as an industry need to help solve together.
Yeah.
Yep. And that is actually a good segue to my next question. So my next question is about humans versus artificial intelligence, the role of humans versus artificial intelligence in these systems. So we know that there are a spectrum of solutions for visual assistants that could range from sole reliance on remote-sighted humans to sole reliance on artificial intelligence. Could you talk a little bit about which solution you use or prefer? And could you also discuss what aspects you think should be done only by either humans or artificial intelligence?
I think this is Karthik from Envision. We strongly believe that we need to really manage expectations around what is AI good at today versus what is not. I think a lot of times, even from within the AI community, there is a lot of, I would say, an inflated sense of what the model can do or what the technology can do at this point. I think there are some very well-defined tasks. For example, I think OCR is a task. Optical character recognition is a task that AI has gotten consistently good at. It's definitely not there yet when it comes to reading text from pretty much any surface, but mostly we've seen it make remarkable strides in the area of document. Like if it's a document, then OCR works really well. So I think there are some areas where only AI solutions will work. And I think there are some solution areas, for example, when it comes to outdoor navigation, right? We constantly get asked by people in the community, is it possible to build a model that can help them recognize, traffic signs and things like that? Of course we can. Should we do it? Absolutely not. At least where I come from, where I look at it, I don't think we should be building such models just yet and putting it out there, because those are things that can definitely harm a human. If they don't end up, it has more potential for harm than good at this point, because the models, could have some bias in them, which could end up hurting a human. So those are areas where definitely not having a machine in the loop actually really helps. And it just needs to be with AI. I think like it's a joint effort between the technologist and the user to understand like what are the problems that are, and what are the problems that can be solved by AI and what are the problems that can't be solved by humans. And I think AI excels at well-defined tasks where the data looks more or less similar to what it's been trained on. So you don't have a lot of variance in the kind of data that you might see, but and it also needs to be in a setting that might not cause direct harm to a human being, whereas the machine should entirely be out of the loop in areas where we can see that the machine can indeed harm humans. There could be a point in time where we could use, maybe when smart glasses become more mainstream, we could have special sensors or hardware that might augment what the AI could do, like some kind of sensor fusion along with the model could make things almost as accurate as humans. It could end up becoming like the OCR level accuracy, but I think we're not there yet. So those are areas where we definitely will never move into. And I think we should probably just wait for things to progress before trying to jump into those areas.
I do have hope for AI, though, is that because there are things that I think with technology, the right level of technology, we can help solve. As an example, I really do believe that the age-old problem of blind persons accessing graphs and charts and derive at proper interpretation right now is still very much a combination of working with human and working with assistive technology to get at the right data. But I think AI can provide a way forward so that there's less analysis that has to be done and less exploration. I think AI can surface the relevant data quicker. Um, I think that we need to work together so that blind people could get access to a graphical type data type in a more meaningful way, in such a way that that we can have an equal opportunity to succeed in a timely manner compared to sighted persons. I think AI will help us get there. It's not there yet. It's amazing to me, though, that this type of problem has been with us for a while now, and we have not yet solved it. So I guess I'll put a challenge down here that where we all gather together, we should look at a way to bring new technology to help solve complexity of charts and graphs. I think it's really important for us to do this so that more blind kids can get into STEM easier.
This is Karthik here. I think one other area where currently we see a lot of human involvement, but hopefully in the future we could have AI take over with the right kind of inputs, is image captioning. I've been following image captioning a lot because it's one of those areas that are very, very interesting to us. For example, I've seen the remarkable strides that cognitive services, Microsoft Cognitive Services, has actually made with the image captioning AI over a period of time. And not just Microsoft, I've seen other companies make these kind of remarkable strides, and we've been following how the image captioning AIs in the very beginning used to be really, I would say, apart from being inaccurate, they would be very broad in the way they would describe things. I think now it's becoming a lot more specific as as the years go by. It's still describing an image is still something that users of the Envision app or the glasses still do with the glasses, but then they always double check with the human as to what the image actually is, or they want to have more detail. And I think as the years go by, that is one really exciting area that I think can benefit a lot of people with visual impairment, is for AI to be able to generate good captions with some fair amount of detail, and can remove the human out of the loop. For example, when we get an image on WhatsApp, you could just have it interpreted by an image captioning AI versus trying to get your friend or a family member to describe that for you. So that's one more area I would add, along with mathematical equations and charts, as something that I think is going to definitely be cracked in the next few years.
Totally. And this is Saqib. Yeah, our team has even more work to improve image captioning coming out over the period to come. So excited by that. And math, charts, these are all really good points. Bigger picture, as someone who's blind, I think about this on different, it's a continuum. So I don't think just human-powered solutions or just AI-powered solutions are the answer. To me, I think about privacy, efficiency, accuracy, and independence. So someone is likely to maybe choose an automated solution when you want that efficiency or independence that just comes of getting whatever answer you can. It also gives you more privacy because you might not want to discuss your bank balance with a stranger. But then you go to the other extreme where you really want accuracy, or you want to ask about a difficult task. Maybe today that includes something with a lot of interaction, including navigation, but many others as well, like finding an outfit that's good for a particular social context or so forth. And so I think the cursor is going to move along that spectrum back and forth for different tasks over the years. And I think, AI is becoming way more capable than it was when we started seeing AI, but there's still so many things for which we rely on humans, either because it's more accurate or just more pleasant or convenient, but also be aware it's not always available or something you want to use. So
I couldn't agree more, Saqib. And I think, this is Will, from Be My Eyes perspective, it's tempting to say, there's always going to be tasks that we need human eyesight for. And yet I don't think any of our volunteers would be upset if we sent them an email tomorrow saying, we don't need your assistance anymore. We can do it all on our phones, right? And I think that, just due to the event that we're at today, it's if you take some of these examples of things that I could throw out, all these examples of things we see on the app on a daily basis, whether it's something like Saqib saying, how does my outfit look, or identifying a strange dog in your backyard, or are the men at my door actually policemen? That was one we heard recently. So these things seem entirely human tasks where you really need a human eye, but it strikes me that it's not so much about the machine's ability to see as it is the kind of task targeting that happens in advance of the actual vision interaction. And so I don't think it's out of the question to think that we could knock some of these really kind of difficult seeming computer vision tasks off the list and hand them over to the machines from humans. But it just goes back to that data set and also maybe some really creative minds thinking about how are we targeting tasks, and maybe there's user training involved to get the most out of your AI, where you kind of have to meet it in the middle in order to really leverage the power of it. I'm not the engineer in the group, but I think that with the right data sets, we can make huge strides forward that we would find hard to fathom today, right?
And hey, Will, like as AI becomes better at doing more and more, I do hope that then the human volunteers will have even more fun tasks. I'm just making stuff up on the spot, but hey, maybe enjoying the night sky with your kids and pointing out, the different constellations.
Let's just keep
how are we going to do
the
that?
bar, right?
Exactly.
I think any AI solution that we create, we must co-create with the users. I think the industry players and technology developers cannot do this one-sided or in isolation without the users. It's easier, I know that we all agree here. It's easier said than done, actually, because again, we need to go back and make sure that everyone within the disability community, regardless of location and language and social status and whatnot, have an equal opportunity to participate in this AI data harvest efforts, so that we can produce technology that will truly work for everybody.
Yeah, and that is again going to my next question then. Do you, in your practice, involve target audiences in developing and improving your products? And if so, could you please elaborate on how you do so?
So Microsoft consider disability as a strength. So in the technologies that we develop, we involve persons with disability from the designing to the testing, as well as we have communities that provide advice to our engineering teams on an ongoing basis as well, to ensure that we create technologies that are meaningful to the user. So yes, and I'm very proud and glad that Microsoft has taken this approach, because persons with disability are seriously impacted by the technology that the industry players bring about. It either going to work or not going to work, and it would be good if people with disability and users everywhere can participate in a journey of creating that technology, so that we can ensure that the technology indeed work well and help everybody stay productive. So this is a value that I'm glad that Microsoft has cultivated under the leadership of Jenny Leigh Fleury, our Chief Accessibility Officer. So it's been gratifying to see.
Yeah, and I mean you've got a majority of this is Will, by the way, a majority of blind or low vision people even on this panel today, and I think that tells you something, and that's probably where I think we'll all agree is, it'd be my eyes at least, we don't do anything without involving the user. We don't release anything without testing it with the users. We base a lot of our development roadmap on feedback, and it's entirely ingrained in what we do.
I think this is Karthik here from Vision. I think what we're a really small startup, right? But we also ensure that at the end of the day, we begin with the users, because we've seen that oftentimes when we go create, wherein we get people who are from different walks of life into a single room with the designers, with the developers, that in fact helps us create or saves us a lot of time in terms of which direction to take a particular feature in or take a particular product in, right? For example, on the Envision glasses, we just released a feature that allows a visually impaired person to move their document before to get the document fully in frame in one go, so that they don't have to end up taking pictures of the document over and over again with the glasses. So this was a feature that we first came across because this is a feature that's there on the app. It's also there in an app like Seeing AI. and users wanted to have the same experience when they were using smart glasses. And so no one has ever built something like this for smart glasses at all. No one's ever built a document guidance system for people using these kind of glasses. So we had to first start, and even the AI team didn't know what they should actually end up building. What kind of a model should they build? Should they build a model that works on a real-time video feed? Should they build a model that works on images? And those are the questions that get answered when you put the users from the community from different walks of life, right? Again, that's also important because you can get, I can get a lot of, visually impaired people who are extremely tech savvy, but then can I also get the 70-year-old grandma who's not really, into technology, also in the same room as a 24-year-old programmer who's visually impaired and has been around technology since the day they were born, right? So we work really hard. And since we're based out of the Netherlands, we try to do our best to get people from different cultural backgrounds as well to be part of these co-creation sessions. We invite them to the office, and one of my favorite moments that happened over the that happened in March was we actually had different versions of the same model for the document guidance ready, right, with different frames per second processing times for these, right? So we actually basically connected the glasses to my laptop, handed each user a pair of the glasses that was running a different version of the model itself that had different frame rates, and we could see like which model works best for people based on what they think. So if, for example, some users preferred a faster frame rate but weren't so caught up on accuracy, those were people with, like, for example, some amount of vision, some low vision users. Then there were people who were completely blind and who didn't have the residual vision to be able to understand the shape of the document, so they wanted higher accuracy but they were okay with lower frame rates. So even those kind of trade-offs become very evident when we start talking to users, and that's sort of been that's the way we've been building things from day one. Because ultimately, unlike Saqib or Anne or Will, I'm not a visually impaired person, so it's incorrect for me to assume that I know exactly what someone who's going to be actually using the product wants. And so that was the main driver for us. And this whole example of this feature is one of the many examples that I can talk about with regards to co-creating with users, right? And that stuff or that conversation directly impacts the work that we do and the priorities that we pick, because we're not a company with a lot of resources, so we have to be very picky, and the user input helps us prioritize that a lot and build products.
And even with a team with people with vision impairments on the team, there is the broad spectrum of lived experiences of people with all sorts of different levels of vision or different levels of tech ability or just different life backgrounds. So yeah, there's nothing without the user in the work we do, because that's the whole point of creating assistive technologies, is, well, to have the biggest impact for the users. So whether that is in terms of the ideas which might come from a very real user need, through to the design of the user experience and or the machine learning models, that all then comes from having users involved to some extent in the design, but then even more so in the testing of making sure that whatever we do come up with really is something that provides the value we want it to, because if it doesn't, then there's no point. So I think working with users throughout the process of a variety of different users is really important. And that might be just over the internet, it might be people we invite for a particular study, or that's the general feedback we get by email, a number of different avenues we use to be able to do that.
Thank you for that. So my final question for today is, I'm sure there are people in the audience as well as students who are wanting to get involved in the work that you do. So could you please share a bit about how students and others can get involved? For example, what skills does your team look for when recruiting, and how might a computer vision or accessibility person make themselves appealing to your accessibility team?
So this is Karthik from Envision. To be honest, and to put it bluntly, they need to give a damn, right? That's the kind of people who we really want to have and want to attract, and those are the people who we have seen from our experience. Again, since us being an early stage startup, we don't get like a flood of applicants to pick from, but even the ones that we do reach out to, we've always ensured that they really care about the problem that we worked on. I think the second skill set for someone who really wants to enter the space, it's a cliche, but we really want to have these T-shaped people, right? T-shaped people are people who have a deep expertise in one area, but then are also able to go ahead and work, well, or be able to expand their skill set in other areas, or be able to do the basics in other areas really well. So while we expect a computer vision engineer at Envision to be really good at computer vision, we also expect them to have certain amount of soft skills, right? So we put we have computer vision engineers actually interacting with our users almost on a daily basis. The things that they build, goes directly into the hands of tens of thousands of people across the world. So they need to be empathetic enough to talk to them on a daily basis, empathetic enough to understand things from their perspective, and have the soft skills to basically work with people itself. And for example, if we're talking to someone who's a designer, they need to be able to understand accessible design really well. We need them to be really good at that. But at the same time, they need to be able to understand the limitations of technology and how they can basically communicate the limitations of those of that technology, or computer vision specifically here, to the end user, and be able to have a conversation or be able to indulge in user research based on what the technology can do, right? So I think it's important for people to really care about the problem, and for people to be able to have one area where they're really skilled at, but then also be ready to dip their hands into many other areas as well, more specifically on the human side, right? So we've come across a lot of typical lone wolf programmer types who just like to sit in a room and then say, I'm going to hash out code. You tell me what I need to do, I'm going to just hash out code, and I'm really good at that. And we've passed on those candidates because of the fact that they don't have or they're not willing to really go out and talk to users and understand things from their perspective, right? And that's the kind of person that you should be if you're looking to get into accessibility.
This is Will. I'll just add on to what Karthik said. Microsoft is really a leader in building inclusive teams, so I'll give them the final word. But from my perspective, I think my advice would be get to know the history and the people who have been working on building technology for people with disabilities over the last few decades, because it's a small industry, it's a small group, but there are some just incredible innovations and incredible thinkers and people who have spent their whole lives doing this, and so much can be learned from them. And I think, and even though it's sort of just a small slice in this mainstream technology field, I really think a respect and kind of knowledge of those who came before is really important before you dive in to this stuff.
Yeah, so we're currently hiring for Seeing AI, so do email seeingai@microsoft.com if you're interested. But what do we look for? Really, as people have said, it's this really caring about helping people, improving the state of the art, and being technically at the top of your game. So I think about human-centered AI as this rare skill set where not only do you understand machine learning, but you also understand how to apply that to real-world problems, especially ones which involve new user experiences, because it's not about just taking some data and training a model to predict, given more data, create accurate predictions. It's really, how do we actually enable people to do more? And that really depends on the human experience of how is someone using technology, where are they, what do they understand, what is their situation. And so it's bringing all of that, understanding the people, understanding that and prototyping experiences, plus understanding machine learning. And that combination is just so powerful. But yeah, as others have said, a lot of it is just also just adapting with time, because what is relevant today might change tomorrow. At the end of the day, we're all about solving problems, regardless of which technology we end up using or what particular field is the most interesting at the moment in time. So that ability to learn and just keep creating solutions that help people is invaluable.
I'll just leave with this. Use technologies. Number one, use it. Because whether it would be any industry player, Microsoft or any other player in the industry, when we create technologies, we hope that we would be able to put it in people's hands, and we thrive on the feedback of the users. And there are so many ways to give us feedback, right? In the product itself, you can give us accessibility feedback. You can reach out to the Disability Answers Desk or the Enterprise Disability Answers Desk, or you can tweet to us at MS Enable. So there are so many ways to give us feedback, but use our technology and keep the feedback coming. And I think the skill that we're really looking for is, yes, we're looking for technical skills. Like, you have to be really good at whatever engineering discipline you're at. You may have to be really good about assistive technology, but I think most importantly, the skill that we're looking for is the ability to partner, the ability to form the relationship, the ability to build empathy and co-create with others. Not working in isolation is the golden ticket to bring forth accessibility in the technology space. So the more you can come in with new point of view, and then be willing to take feedback as well as you work to advocate or improve accessibility, because sometimes we all quote unquote have tunnel vision, and we have some preconceived notion of how things should be or how things have always been. And I just urge that people who get into accessibility, yes, we need to develop and design products that respect the industry practices or the usability experience that's been in the past, but we also need to look ahead and innovate. So let's be open-minded. As Satya often said at Microsoft, let's have a growth mindset in this area and then be willing to partner. Then we can come together and create this beautiful harmony to ensure that everyone can use the technology as they should be able to.
Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion today, and we're so grateful to each one of you for sharing your valuable insights with our audience today. As it was for me, I'm sure it was extremely inspiring for our audience as well, and we look forward to following the progress you all make with the products and services for the community. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samreen.
Thank you very much.